Welcome to the Schuby Show, where sports, movies, TV shows, technology, history, and more come to life. Now, please be seated and get ready for some more never-ending nonsense with yours truly, Schuby.
This is the Schuby Show with yours truly, Carson Schubert. And today on the show, we have a very special guest. A lot of special guests we've had on the show, but this guy's pretty special as well. We'll get to him in a moment, but want to thank you all for listening to the Schuby Show, and you can find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at the Schuby Show. And, of course, subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and all those places where all fine podcasts are aggregated, as we have said on Norse Code. And speaking of Norse Code, we have the man himself, Arif Hasan, who is of Norse Code. He writes for Cold Omaha, /Zone Coverage, Daily Norseman, and 1500 ESPN, and a myriad of other places he's written throughout his career. Arif, how are you doing tonight?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Good to have you finally on the show. We kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, so good to have you on.
Yeah, no problem.
So, obviously, Arif is a Vikings expert, if you did not know. He's a big Vikings fan. He's been a Vikings fan for a long time, pretty much your whole life. Is that right, Arif?
Yeah, I have.
So, Arif, we're going to talk a little bit about Vikings stuff. So if you're not a Vikings fan, I'm sorry you're out of luck for this episode, because that is exactly what we're going to talk about. So we're going to start off by talking about the offseason. And obviously the Vikings have had a lot of people think a very good draft, and I think it was definitely a very solid draft. And free agency-wise, Vikings fans kind of are mixed on that. Some of them think that they could have gone after some bigger names in the guard market, or even bigger names in the tackle market. And there are people that think that they did as much as they could. Maybe they offered those big contracts to those people. But Arif, I just want to get your thoughts initially on free agency and the draft.
Yeah, I thought the Vikings did a pretty good job in the draft. Like you said, I think the first three picks were phenomenal. I thought they got an extra round of value on each of those picks. They picked Dalvin Cook. I thought he was a first-round value. They got him in the second round. They got Pat Elflein and Julio Johnson. And I think earlier than or later than I think they would have gone to. I kind of like the Ben Gideon pick. It took me a little while to get warmed up to it. And so, generally speaking, I think the Vikings got away with a pretty good set of picks. And I think if, one of those later guys, turn out, like Fedi Odenigbo or Stacey Coley, if they turn out, that's just kind of a bonus. And then in free agency, I think the Vikings did enough to fill out the positions of need. It made it much easier for them to draft, whoever they felt was the best player at the time, because they didn't really have as much of a priority to developing a rookie at a particular need, so they didn't have to trade up to get a tackle at either position. You're right that, the guard market was a little bit thin, but, it seemed like they kind of trusted what they had in Jeremiah Sirles, and that if they have Pat Elflein, they can actually move Berger out to guard. So it really seems like they had a cohesive plan this offseason.
Yeah, and one of the things, too, everybody was talking about pre-draft, and even in the draft, they were talking about how thin the amount of tackles, or at least top-heavy good tackles, were in this draft. And I think the Vikings did the right strategy from that standpoint, where they went and got their tackles in free agency and then kind of went with the guard/center in the draft.
Yeah, no, it kind of makes sense, just in part because there were so few guards left on the market. The tackle market was a little bit richer, and a lot of people wanted them to go after Ricky Wagner. I'm kind of happy with Remmers and Reif, because I think they're upgrades, even if they're not spectacular by any means. And they kind of just let they grabbed Danny Isidora in the draft too. They kind of just let a guard kind of emerge from the fray.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought they did a good job doing that. So that's pretty much all we really need to talk about. I think those are the two biggest signings. We'll talk a little bit about what we expect from some of the rookies and some over-under and some questions I'll have later. But most of this stuff has already been talked about by many other Vikings podcasts, including Norse Code, which I'm a part of, and, of course, Arif, also a part of the Andy, Luke, and Arif football machine. They talk about Vikings on a weekly basis, so you can listen to that on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are aggregated. And, Vikings have put up or are putting up a new training facility, which is set to open March 1st of next year. I don't know how many videos or how much you've known about the facility, Arif, but do you think it's pretty exciting to not only the players and the coaches, but to the media that get to get a little bit better of a space at the new training facility?
Yeah, well, I haven't been able to visit, but my colleague Sam Ekstrom at Zone Coverage has been able to, and he tells me it's actually going to be a lot better for media, if only because there's going to be better Wi-Fi coverage throughout the facility. For players, it's going to be pretty phenomenal, too. They've got a number of practice fields instead of just one, and it's larger. Overall, the increase in space that they've gained will be used to further all the Vikings operations. They'll have a larger training room. The Vikings Entertainment Network, I know Wabi's going to be happy about this, has a much larger studio from which to operate. So it's really helping the Vikings and everybody who covers the Vikings and everybody who plays for the Vikings to sort of further their goal along, because the strength facility, I was kind of skeptical of why they would need it. But, after what everything Sam told me, this training facility is actually helping the Vikings a lot.
Yeah, I think your point about Mike Wobschall and the Vikings Entertainment Network, I think that it was a 400 square foot, 400 by 400 or whatever, their original space, and now I think it's like 6,000 by 6,000 or whatever it is. I'm terrible with numbers in general, but terrible even more so with construction, that kind of thing. But it is a much bigger.
It is much, much larger. Yeah.
So it definitely looks like it's going to be a pretty big thing. And one of the things that they're going to be doing too is, sounds like they're basically going to make this new practice facility in Eagan. It's basically going to become like a city almost for these players. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be interesting, giving the players more opportunities to, do stuff at the facility is probably a good thing. It allows things to be self-contained. And also one of the biggest things that, if you're a player, that you probably have to deal with is, stuff to do, right? Like you can't always, when you're through with your training regimen and you're done icing up and you're limited from like the rules to practice, but there's still reason to be at the facility. It's good to have, stuff to do, and keeping players at a facility, probably just helps the Vikings out, keeps them cohesive. And it also allows, players to hang out together, maybe exchange tips.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention in the opening, you can follow Arif on Twitter at Arif Hasan NFL, and I know that by heart just by listening to Andy, Luke, and Arif Football Machine. So moving on now to Mike Zimmer's eye, and honestly, in my opinion, Arif, this is one of the biggest question marks of the offseason. I think that his eye, it could become a serious issue. I think the Vikings did a good job by telling him he needs to take his time off right now. And I think it's just about as perfect of a timing as you can get. It's after the draft, and it's kind of in this off-season relaxation. Not totally. I mean, he's missing OTAs, but I think this is about the best time of any for him to take some time off, and I think it's much needed because pretty soon you're going to start hearing about Mike Zimmer having to retire because of his eyesight.
Yeah, no, it's something to keep watching. It's going to be difficult for the Vikings to move forward if this is not, in fact, the final eye surgery. I think Mike Zimmer indicated that he thinks it will be. And you're right, that it happening sort of in the doldrums of the offseason is a little bit better. It probably would have been even better had it occurred just a little bit earlier than OTA, so they wouldn't have to miss out on it. But this is pretty close to an ideal time for that to happen. Hopefully he's paying attention to sort of what his doctors are saying about whether or not you need to rest the eye and what you need to do and stuff like that, so that he can be fully available for the season. Otherwise, I think that you're right that there could be some possibility of this impacting his capability for being the football coach for the Vikings in the long-term future.
Yeah, like they say, the best ability is availability, and when you're not available, especially when you're a head coach, that's tough. And honestly, I think the Vikings would run just fine without Mike Zimmer, but there are probably some things that would change, I would think, from Zimmer to Edwards, especially on the defensive side.
Yeah, I think so. We didn't see much of it in the Dallas game that Edwards was able to run the defense and that Mike Priefer was the head coach. But I think over the course of a whole season, we'd see a lot of changes to the defense as a result of, what would be a hypothetical Mike Zimmer absence to George Edwards in charge. And it'd be difficult to kind of envision what that would look like because Mike Zimmer's put such a strong stamp on what that defense is and its identity. Hopefully not much would change from a results perspective. It's, of course, a very high-level defense. But, we probably see a lot of things change from a technique perspective. We see a lot of things change from a schematic perspective. Be kind of curious to see how that would evolve.
Yeah, and I think somebody said, I think it was Rick Spielman in his press conference the other day, he said that Zimmer was cleared by doctors to watch film, and now I could just imagine him at his ranch in Kentucky. He's sitting up and he's watching film like all the time, and it's like, oh man, I don't even know if this guy's really even getting any rest.
Well, he loves football and he misses football, so so long as he's been cleared to do stuff like film study, it's nothing's going to stop him.
Yeah. And I think somebody asked him, I think it might have been Chris Thomason, he asked him that if somebody was keeping an eye on him the whole time or if somebody went with him to his ranch. And he said, I'm not going to comment on that, or I'm not going to get into any of the details. That seems to be his new, Rick Spielman's new MO is, I'm not going to get into any of the details on that.
Well, it's actually something he's been pretty familiar with saying for quite a while. Every time reporters ask him about his draft plans or who else he had on the board, he keeps things pretty close to his vest.
Yeah. So moving on to more injuries. Speaking of injuries, Teddy Bridgewater coming off that tear of his ACL and knee dislocation. He came out with the Vikings came out with a video the other day about Bridgewater of showing Bridgewater dropping back, kind of exactly what he posted to Instagram probably a month or two ago, of him dropping back and throwing. Again, it's not a lot different than what you saw, but it is in pads and it is at a team facility, so it does give you some signs of encouragement. But at the same time, I guess it's not like he's yet cleared to go to practice. I think doctors said that he's cleared to progress in his rehab, but practice is yet a little bit too far away. But again, optimistic signs, especially for me and yourself as a Teddy Bridgewater supporter and fan.
Yeah, I think the most optimistic thing is just the fact that they wanted to share the video. I think it shows that they've got some confidence in his ability to recover. You ask some doctors who are kind of familiar with knee rehabilitation about what it means that he was just cleared to move side to side, and they'll tell you that that's a pretty good sign. It confirms that progress is happening, and it's a pretty good sign of progress. But that there's also kind of a long way to go, and so there's every chance in the world that he's going to enter training camp on the physically enabled to perform list, and then we'll enter the season on the physically enabled to perform list. But I think that generally speaking, that this is a positive sign because it just means that the Vikings are willing to kind of embrace having Bridgewater in the building and having Bridgewater show signs of his progression to the rest of the world. Yeah,
and we're going to actually talk about Teddy, what you think he'll do for starts this season, if any, in a moment. But yeah, you can't help but cheer for this kid, and those fans that are out there that I still can't believe there's Viking fans that hate Teddy Bridgewater, but there seems to be. How can you hate this kid? He is so fun to watch in the huddle. You can just see that the players love him. You can obviously Zimmer loves him, and I think the whole coaching staff loves him. I don't know how you can hate this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. People get stuck in their ways.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's like, how can you not cheer for somebody like Teddy Bridgewater? But anyways, another thing that happened at training camp, or I should say OTAs the other day, Laquan Treadwell made a terrific catch, supposedly. I saw it too, and I thought it was a pretty good catch, but I don't know if Xavier was necessarily trying so hard on that catch myself, but what are your thoughts on that Treadwell catch?
Not much. I mean, it's just one catch at OTAs, but it is a good sign. I mean, if there was nothing there for the Vikings to tweet out highlights, that'd be much more worrisome. But yeah, I mean, it's nice. I'm not really that much into breaking down highlight film, but it's a good thing it happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's one of those things where you can't read too much to it, and especially at OTAs when Rhodes is maybe not playing a ball maybe as well or as properly as he normally would either. And somebody said to me, he's like, oh, but Rhodes, if he would have played that ball any better, he would have got pass interference in a game or whatever. It's like, I don't know. But anyways, what do you think Sam Bradford's ceiling is statistically wise and leading the Vikings?
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up performing as a top 10 quarterback again. I would be a little bit surprised if he ends up in the top 5 of a lot of relevant categories, things like, adjusted net yards per attempt, and passer rating. But generally speaking, I think that, if he does end up starting all 16 games, which, is certainly a possibility, he was healthy all year last year, I could see him throwing, more than 25 touchdowns, 26, 27, 28. And avoiding throwing too many interceptions. Probably, wouldn't be surprised if he kept his interception numbers low, like he did this year. He threw 5 interceptions last year. I'd expect that to regress upward just a little bit, but it certainly might be under 10. Yeah.
Do you think that he'll take more risks in year 2, or do you think it'll be relatively the same?
I think he'll take some more risks, and some of that will come just from the fact that he'll get a little bit more time in the pocket for protection.
Yeah, right.
But a lot of the reason that he threw so short last year was just because the plays were designed to to make irrelevant how bad that offensive line was.
Yeah.
And so he didn't take the 7-step drops that we constantly saw. With Teddy Bridgewater, the plays that were called were a little bit friendlier to the fact that the offensive line was a little bit was kind of destroyed. So with that in mind, I think that there's a good likelihood that he's going to throw further downfield and in that sense take those risks.
All right, Arif, we're going to play some rapid fire before we let you go, and some rapid fire over/under, and then I've got 3 questions for you, just random questions I came up with. So over/under 30 touchdowns for Sam Bradford.
Over/under 30? I'm going to go under.
Okay. 10 touchdowns for Dalvin Cook.
Man, I'm worried about Latavius Murray being a vulture. I'll go with the under, but it's not a bad.
All right. Over/under, since the Vikings were close to having 2,000-yard receivers, we'll go with that. Over/under 2 1,000-yard receivers this year.
I'm going to go over.
All right. Over/under 5 interceptions for Xavier Rhodes.
Ooh, that's interesting. Man, he's been getting a lot better at it. Let's go over. Why not?
All right. 40 receptions for Laquan Treadwell.
Under.
There was a long pause. He's like, oh, no, not Treadwell. All right. Over/under 20 receptions for Bucky Hodges.
Oh, that's interesting. He's going to start the depth chart behind David Morgan and Kyle Rudolph. That would be tough. Under, but it's not bad.
All right. And the last over-under I have, 2 starts for Teddy Bridgewater.
Let's see. On the Andy Luca football machine, I ended up taking the over on 0.5 starts. I'm going to stick there, so I'm going to take the under on 2.
Okay. All right. So you're saying he's going to have 1 on the season, you're thinking?
Yeah, I think he'll have maybe the Week 17 start, yeah.
All right, 3 more quick questions for you, Arif, and then we'll let you go. Who has more touchdowns at tight end? Honestly, I think Bucky Hodges is going to be used quite a bit in the red zone personally, but who do you think has more touchdowns, Hodges or Rudy?
Or Rudolph? I think it's going to be Rudolph. I just think that, he just came off, an 800-yard season?
Yeah.
And he's been useful in the red zone in the past, and I think that now that they've got more confidence at quarterback than they've had in a long time, they're going to try that again. I think it's going to be Rudy.
I'm going to go with Hodges on that. I think Hodges is going to be targeted quite a bit in the red zone, and I think he might have more touchdowns. I think, obviously, Rudolph will have more yards and receptions, but I think Hodges will have more touchdowns. And then, who leads the Vikings in receptions for the 2017 season?
I think Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, all right.
I think it's more likely that he's going to be. Yeah, I think it's more likely that he's going to be used in early down situations to help move the chains, and I think that he's just a primary receiver.
All right, and the final question I have for you, Arif: who leads the defense in tackles for 2017?
Tackles? I'm going to go with Eric Hendricks. He's going to be a 3-down linebacker. I know Anthony Barr is too, but I think that there's a good chance that as he continues to break up screens, he'll be more effective as a middle linebacker, breaking up those runs in the middle. He's getting better attacking the run game every year, and he's matching kind of the level of play that he showed at UCLA, where he was also a tackle machine. So I'm going to go with Kendricks.
I lied. Do you think that he gets moved to the will linebacker spot, or do you think he stays in the middle?
I think he stays in the middle, and I think that Elijah Lee or Edmund Robinson will probably take that weak side spot.
All right, you heard it here from Arif Hasan. Sam Bradford will not throw for over 30 touchdowns. No 10 touchdowns or more for Dalvin Cook. All this hot take stuff coming from Arif Hasan. So, Arif, I appreciate you coming on. Again, you can follow Arif on Twitter at Arif Hasan NFL. Catch the Andy Luke and Arif football machine. Just came out with another release yesterday of Hour 1 and Hour 2 of the show. And catch Norse Code with me and him and Dusty O'Connell, who's going to be on the show eventually. And that'll be a new episode next week for Norse Code. And, of course, catch all of Arif's articles on Cold Omaha/Zone Coverage. And, again, Arif, I appreciate you joining me for this podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. And that's going to do it for The Schuby Show. And you can follow the show, again, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at The Schuby Show. We'll be back next week with a fresh new episode, and maybe even 2. And next week we will also have the drawing for the beef jerky /t-shirt /everything else contest. So that's going to do it. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Schuby Show. We hope you mildly enjoyed yourself with more never-ending nonsense with yours truly. For more nonsense, go to the website, theschubyshow.com. Get the show on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Until next time, Skol.